Welcome to the Rebel Matriarch Podcast. My name is Samantha Sanford and I am your host, and I want to invite you into this session with an open heart and an open mind, because this is not just a podcast. It is a global movement, a global uprising, and this is a representation of what is truly possible and available to women today. Hello, gorgeous humans, and welcome to an incredible session with the amazing Heather. I'm actually really excited to be diving into this conversation because it's one that pretty much everyone needs, because we are all interacting with children and teenagers on a daily basis. And I think the medicine that she's going to bring to this conversation is going to revolutionize the way that we really approach life and leadership and parenting and supporting our young generations. And so, Heather, I am really excited for this conversation, and I'm so grateful that you're here on this call. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here as well. Always happy to have conversations around kids and families. And
Yeah, the work that you're doing is so important and it's so profound. And I'm curious, how did you get here? How did this start for you, working with kids, working with teenagers, supporting parents to actually support their kids?
yeah, truthfully, if I were to say how it started, I would honestly say my first grade teacher, actually. She played such an important role in my life. And after I met her, once I was in first grade, that was the first that I was like, I want to be a teacher, because I wanted to be able to make other people feel how she made me feel. She was the first person that I felt like. I still remember the first day meeting her in the school I was at. You line up outside the classroom and your class teacher shakes your hand and says, "Good morning." And just when she looked at me, it was like the first person I think that I felt like she saw me. And then it continued that way. And it wasn't even like things she said, it was just how she interacted with me. The little things that she would notice, her house was on my walk home from school. So she would start it at one point. She would kind of whisper, I'll be home if you want to stop by on your way. And I would stop by her house. She had two teenage daughters, and stop by and just, I don't know, have a cookie and a glass of milk or something and just say hi. But I don't know what she knew about my life really or not, but the way that she made me feel seen and validated, it just, it helped me to be able to stand a little taller and, be a little braver and um, a little less anxious in the world. Yeah.
Love that. Are you open to sharing a little bit about what was going on for you, purely because we're all dealing with so many things, and so many of us, especially as women, are dealing with things from childhood. And so just to get an understanding of, with only details that you're willing to share, but an
Yeah.
understanding of what you were going through as a child, and then the importance of of having an adult, especially a motherly figure, notice us, and how important it is as women to be leaders, especially with our young. Are you open to sharing just a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm very much an open book, maybe too much sometimes. It's just my life, right? Yeah. Oh gosh, how could I explain it? So I have a sister who's 2 years older than me. So at the time, and a brother 4 years younger. And my parents they met in college, and, after 6 weeks decided they needed to get married. And partly because one grandfather is Sicilian, and there was unless they wanted to live together, and it's like, you can't live together unless you're married. So my mom's like, we got to get married. So they got married, and then a year later, so they were 19, got married a year later, had my sister. And then when my dad graduated college, so my mom dropped out at that time, they decided to sell everything, and they were real hippies at the time, and moved to England and work on a biodynamic farm. So they
Do
sold
right.
everything, moved to England, and then once they were there, my mom realized she was pregnant. So I happened to be born in England, which is something that's has played a part. Like I said, it's really important to me. It's been a very interesting thing throughout my life. But then when I was 6 months old, they moved back to the States. They were just there for a year. And they moved to, I don't even know how to describe it, where we lived. We lived in this community where it's called the Fellowship Community in New York. And they, we had a little apartment, and they really, my understanding is, kind of worked in exchange for living there. And it was a community for elderly people, but it was also like a farm and, photography studio and wood shop. It was a completely self-functioning kind of a place. And my parents were super busy working all the time. So my sister and I were often with all the other kids running off, doing our own thing. And my parents definitely felt like we were in this safe little, closed community. My experience of it, I was super anxious all the time. There were a lot of really strange people, other people that lived there and worked there. And I remember, like, at 3 years old, my sister was, 5, but we were hanging out with, like, the 16-year-old and down, like the older, there was a doctor who lived there, and like his boys were around. I guess the older kids were watching the younger kids, or I don't know what the adults really thought where we were, but a lot of really strange things happened when we were there, and memories from there. And that was the first 6 years for me. Then we moved up the street. When I started first grade, we moved out of this little community. My parents had a house up the street, and that was then when I started school and walking back and forth. So I had some challenging, weird experiences that actually, some of which I didn't even remember till I was an adult, but like just unkind people, inappropriate things happening, like just, I cut off the tip of one of my fingers. Well, I didn't cut it off. It got like cut off in a door when I was like 3 years old. And I have no idea where any adults were. I was like playing in the hinges, and someone went out, and I don't even remember how my parents found out that I like needed to get to the hospital. But it was that where, as a kid, it was like, who's looking out for us? And then when we left there, suddenly I could feel the anxiety in my mom of like, the world is not a safe place. So for me as a kid, I was like, that wasn't a safe place. And it's even less safe now, like where we were. So that started like incredible anxiety for me. And this was all unspoken, of course, in the family. And that continued through. My mom's anxiety was just so high. And my feeling was like, there's a bad guy around every corner. And not that anyone said that to me, but that's how it felt. And that's how I really lived and moved in the world, of just like feeling like at any second something really bad was going to happen, because I knew where I had been was not safe. And this is apparently even less, less safe or more dangerous. So yeah, so that was kind of where I was at when I then started first grade and met Mrs. Johnson. Yeah.
Mrs. Johnson. Thank
Yeah.
you, Mrs. Johnson.
Yeah.
I find it like, I feel it's really important, because I feel like parenting, especially as women, is just like this expected thing of like, well, you're a mother now, so this is how you mother. But we don't realize how much we impact our kids outside of words and actions and disciplining and,
Yeah.
being a parent. But like the way that we're feeling, how we treat ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the world, all of that feeds into our kids. And so many of us are like plugged into mainstream media, watching the news, like they're buying into a lot of the fear-based mongering that happens globally. They're tuning into like world wars and things that they're not fully understanding. They're just like receiving information based on mainstream media, and it impacts every fiber of their being. Adding on top, we're in a really stressful world, like doing too much. Our bodies are not coping. We're not very healthy. Like there's so many factors that contribute to what we're modeling to our kids. And so I love that you shared this part of your story, because it seems simple, right? But like you said yourself as a kid, how anxious you were, and then to be moved out and now you're more anxious, and you're like, I don't understand why, like there's a bad guy. And
Yeah.
I know for myself growing up, my grandmother was the same, and like my upbringing was the same. It was just like, you just don't leave the house. We go to school, we go to the shops, but we're always supervised by an adult, because you don't know who's out there and it's not safe out there. And no, you can't go here with your friends and you can't do these things because it's not safe out
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
it's just like, it's detrimental to our mental health
Yeah.
and also like our development.
Yeah. 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 I really, the importance of, like you're speaking, the frequency, that's been a big, lately, even more so, part of my work with, not with parents and with teenagers, truthfully too, but is being aware of all the unspoken about what you bring into the room and how children interpret it. And it's left for the kids to interpret into whatever way they may. And a lot of times it's one, what did I do wrong? Or two, as it was for me, of like just feeling like the world was just so incredibly unsafe and something awful was going to happen at any second. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
incredible. It's okay. This conversation is really important. So I implore women to really like, if we're doing other things, maybe just like find a space and listen in on this like with intention, because there's a lot of medicine that's going to come through. I think that's really
Mhm.
important in the way that we're going to parent and show up with our kids. So then you've met Mrs. Johnson, who was an extraordinary woman. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mrs. Johnson.
Yeah.
How that would have created a bit of a shift for you. How did you then sort of navigate the next stages of life, and what was it that came up for you that led you to what you're doing now?
Yeah. And the school I was at, I would have had her for 8 years. You have your main class teacher every year after. And my parents then moved. So
Mm.
felt like the middle of third grade. I mean, it was like April, my ninth birthday. We moved from New York up to Massachusetts. And I was devastated to leave. And it was real. I was devastated to leave my teacher and some close friends, like my best friend. Absolutely devastated. Moved to Massachusetts, to my parents brought this incredible property. I mean, I grew up on this beautiful property in Massachusetts, but I really, my anxiety just started to really spike again. And at school, I was really, really anxious now, where I hadn't really been so anxious at school. That was like my safe place. And then once we moved, then school was a really anxious place to me. And then that just kind of continued. And years and years and years later, I was at like a reunion with friends from that I'd graduated eighth grade with, and someone made a comment and they were like, yeah, you were just too cool for the rest of us. You were just so mature. Like when we were playing spin the bottle or doing these other things. And I was like, I was so anxious. I was like frozen. I just couldn't do anything. It had nothing to do with being like mature and, sophisticated or anything. But it was interesting to hear that that was like, no one had any idea how anxious I was. I hid it really, really well. Yeah, sometimes I wish I could see now, like how I really presented when I was in middle school. But yeah, so and then high school was kind of a journey still. I really couldn't find my way. I started at one school that was a small little alternative private school, and then really for no good reason after my sophomore year, right before my junior was going to start, decided to moved to public school and did what I had to do to get good grades and graduate, skipped school a lot, would call myself out. My parents had no idea. And just because I felt so anxious at school and no one had any idea. Um, and then went right to college and certainly didn't pick the right college. I don't think my parents really knew how to help navigate that process. It's been interesting for me navigating with my children after my own experience of it. So ended up at a college that was not a good fit for me at all. It was really like alternative, kind of artsy, which was a lot the school kind of culture that I'd gone to, but that's actually not how I was at all. I was much more like, let me go play basketball or go throw a softball around or anything outside. Like I'd really like to physically like move a lot. Yeah, so it was a really hard and a really party school. It was my freshman year in college was very intense. And then I did not go back after that. And kind of dibbled and, went to Boston for a little bit and did one semester at Northeastern. It just didn't really know what to do with myself. And then I ended up pregnant at 21 with my oldest child. I was home. And, it's like when you say it was unexpected, it's a little bit always sounds a little silly to say, but it was unexpected. It wasn't planned, wasn't planned, but clearly not planned. So that changed everything, and didn't really know what that meant or what I was going to do. But I knew pretty quickly that it saved me. Like, it really gave me direction and grounded me, and allowed me to finally confront myself. And I remember when my oldest son, who's now 30, just turned 30,
Wow.
when he was about 2, I remember he was having a hard time falling asleep, and I like lay down in his bed with him to go to sleep, and I was feeling anxious and keyed up, and I could see that he was like all keyed up, and I just started like really just taking slow deep breaths and trying to, and then I could feel him taking slow deep breaths, and then he fell asleep, and that was the like first time that went off, and I was like, oh, he's anxious because I'm anxious. He's anxious. Like, he's picking up on my energy. And that was it. I was like, I can't do this. I have to figure this out. I have to figure this out. So I really started working on how to deal with my anxiety, just figuring it out kind of on my own, like what would work and what wouldn't work, and strategies, and a little bit of like fake it till you make it, and just trying to, be calm. And take deep breaths, just because I knew it made him feel more relaxed, and it made me feel more relaxed. So that was really the shift, was seeing it. And then that was when I also first put together for myself how much that was what had happened, is that because my mom still to this day, I feel like has a lot of anxiety, that it was the first that I was like, oh my goodness, that's why I'm actually not an anxious person, which I really realized over time. I'm actually not very anxious of a person at all. But I had taken that on so much because I had grown up with just such extreme anxiety all around me. So yeah, Corey, my oldest, really, that pushed me to just really do the work, and it's up and down, and many years of working through it, and somehow continued to put myself in really challenging situations that would be really anxiety provoking. But yeah, so that was kind of the start in that way. And then it's such a long story of the following 30 years after having Corey. He's the oldest of 4.
Oh, beautiful.
Uh, one of whom, my daughter, I have 3 boys biologically, and then my daughter is not biologically, she's step to me, but I say my daughter, we're very close. Yeah, so I have 4 kids. The youngest is almost 20, and the oldest just turned 30, and a granddaughter she'll be a year and a half, and yeah, like 10 days, not even, in a week. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful. You've got a growing
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, is that I'm assuming Corey's not a very anxious person.
Um, not at all. Not like I was, none of them. I mean, I think that I would say in different ways, all my kids, all the boys, well, all of them, including my stepdaughter, they've all had their own struggles, yeah, with anxiety, but it very different, yeah, in a very different way. And I think part of it is just the heredity, it's like through and through in both sides of their family, right? The anxiety. So, um, but not in a way, yeah, not in the way that I experienced it
That's
as a
amazing.
child. Definitely not like that. Yeah.
That's amazing. And so I
Yeah.
know we touched on it briefly, but like you then sort of you went into teaching young kids, and then you sort of transitioned into um can't think of
Social work. Yeah, I
social
went back
work.
to school then and did I taught when my middle son, yeah, when he was about 2, and then I taught starting when he was 2, maybe almost 3, for about 7 years through my youngest being born. And then I'd had a car accident and had to stop teaching from injuries and stuff, and took a year off on medical leave, and then was clear, like, at that time, they're like, you can't go back to like being on your feet all day and lifting and things. I had some discs out in my back from it. So it was the perfect time. I had already known I wanted to go back to school and do my master's in social work, because when I was teaching, I just I loved the really more challenging kiddos that other people didn't quite know what to do with. They were my favorites. And I really liked working with parents and thought that's what I want to do more. I want to really be an advocate and be a voice for kids that are really struggling, to help all the adults in their life, whether it's school or parents or everyone, anyone, the world, to understand them more and understand that this isn't manipulation. It's not intentional. It's really, really just communication. They're doing the best they can to communicate what they need, and people aren't always understanding what the communication means and trying to stop it instead of be curious about it. So I knew that was what had really piqued my interest at that point. I loved being a classroom teacher, but after 7 years, I was like, yeah, I think I'm done with this anyway. So
Yep.
the accident actually gave me the opportunity then so I went back to school and did my master's, and then spent 1 year working for the state in child welfare, partly because I really wanted to understand the child welfare system and I really wanted to understand the court system. I thought it would be really helpful to understand that whole legal system in our country. But after a year, it was just such heartbreaking work. I was like, I can't do this. So I got a job in a district as a school social worker and absolutely loved it. And then from there, moved into dean of students and vice principal roles. So really running the building and mostly working with the kids that were not behaving appropriately or properly, and working with them and their families and teachers, and loved the work, really loved it. I really miss it sometimes, but still just felt that I wanted more time with these kids. I didn't want to just be like helping them to get settled and transition them back to class. A meeting with parent, I wanted to really be able to dig in with them and help them to learn some skills to better manage and help their parents and the schools, other people, to understand more what support they needed for them to be able to grow into who they really were and to not have to lead with their behaviors. So that then really pushed the shift for me again to decide to leave the school system and just go into private practice with a focus working with kids and teenagers. So that's been, almost 4 years now of just doing that. Yeah. And I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're also now transitioning or wanting to develop something extraordinary, if you can touch on that too.
Yeah. So through these years of working in private practice, now what's really come up for me is there's only so much meeting with a child once a week. I can help them with tools to manage their anxiety or their OCD or help with depression. And I meet a lot, I am in a lot of school meetings for kids, helping to get the right supports in place at school and meeting with parents. But more and more, I realize how much for them, the most important piece is really helping their parents in particular to understand them a little bit more, to understand their behavior as a communication and what they're trying to get across. And for what I've started to realize is how much the parents' response, the frequency, like I was saying, right? Like the energy they bring into a room before anything's even happened. You come home from work and walk in the door and your children are quickly scanning, especially those kids that have their own challenges, are quickly scanning to see where your energy's at. And if the energy's off, then they're quickly trying to figure out, what did I do wrong, right? They're putting it back on themselves, and then this cycle begins. And I've realized through working with parents and trying to help parents, I'm really working with the children, but then we'll have parent sessions and really enjoy it and love it, but have realized more and more, I'm like, oh, what I wouldn't like, I want to get all these different parents in a room together or in a Zoom room together and have some of these conversations and really dig into this and talk about it. And, I realize more and more how no one talks about how much our kids trigger us and then we trigger our kids. And like, what do you do when you're one of your biggest triggers is your child. What do you do? What do you do as a child when your parent is one of your, as a teenager, when your parent is your trigger? And now we're both, in fight or flight, bouncing off each other. And really, all you both want is just this close relationship where you can talk about things and be together and everything's, relaxed. And, there's going to be moments, but I get to see both sides of it. And I see how much these kids, all they want is to have an easy, open, fun, loving relationship with their parents. And I know that's what the parents want, but it's just this constant triggering each other. So I really, really want to dig more into the parent side of things and into helping to be able to learn how to pause, right, when it first starts. So so my kids are all grown now. So my youngest child has just started his second year of college. So I've had time by myself now. I've been divorced for many years. So I've had time on my own to really reflect back on my parenting journey. And I have a very close relationship with all four of my children, and their partners. And I've really thought, and we've been through a lot. We've been through a lot. And I've spent a lot of time reflecting on like how we got here, how I got here, kind of what the process was for me. And at first it started with me really looking at emotional intelligence. Have really fascinated by emotional intelligence and have done a lot of work with that over the years because I found for myself it was helpful to have something that was more tangible like that, something you could grasp, something I could look at, right? Like in a way, I really like data, even though people wouldn't think that of me. I like to know like, oh, if you do this, I want to see somewhere that you can measure the change. So I like that you actually really can. Emotional intelligence, you can change it, you can grow it, you can know where are my weaknesses and where do I, the idea is to balance it, not like, it's not even about that everything is how high everything is. It's like, how balanced can you get your emotional intelligence? So I've done a lot of work with that and work with kids with that and work with parents with that. And then I was really thinking about my parenting journey and realizing how that was a big piece of it for me, was noticing the areas that I really needed to grow and for my kids and for myself, and growing those while I was still raising them. And in reflecting on it, I see the benefit that had for them too. Watching me, go through it. I feel like I really grew up with my children. And yeah, so that's so started shifting that way with it. And it's constantly changing. I really now the frequency piece, I feel like is emotional frequency is just as important as emotional intelligence. And the two together to me are like, okay, if we can really look at those and then look at what our triggers are as parents, right? We have to lead the way. And we have to know, like, just that quiet knowing. I realized that was a big for me, realizing for myself as a parent that I was never like a yeller. I didn't get mad. I don't get mad very easily, have a lot of patience. But I also always knew, like, and my kids knew, not because I threatened them or punished them or anything, that at the end of the day, like, I am in charge. Like I'm in charge. And it's kind of a quiet knowing for me of just the same with when I worked in the schools with the kids. I was like, you can try and do, all your little tricks and roundabout, but at the end of the day, I'm sorry. Like actually I get to make the decision, And it's that kind of quiet knowing of like, I'm the adult and that's all there is to it. There is nothing more to it for me. So I've thought a lot about that and how to help some parents that I work with to just like, whew, just like pause, take a breath. You are jumping into they're spinning and you're jumping in and spinning with them. Like nothing's gonna come out of this. You're both gonna come out exhausted. You're both gonna feel completely misunderstood. You're gonna be completely disconnected. And now what? So for me, the focus of my work is not just on how to come back and repair and connect after those situations, but really for the adult, how to learn to notice when it's starting and just pause, stop, take that pause, go reflect for a minute, regain for yourself, like regulate yourself again, then go back to reconnect and repair. And then in the end, spend some time ideally reflecting a little. I'm like, ooh, okay, what was my trigger in that situation? Understanding our own triggers more and doing the work. So that's what I've been working a lot on now. And I just see the opportunity to be able to do that in a group, to do that, to hear other people's experiences and realize like we're all very much the same in this way, and this trying to find our way through life, right? Whether we're a child or adult, a lot of times it's very similar. And plenty of adults act like children most of the time, especially when we get triggered, we all go back to our childhood stuff, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah. So that's kind of where, yeah. And I just, it's interesting because you also have the word rebel. And I really, a few years ago, when I was first realizing I wanted to shift more into the parent side of things and kind of trying to come up with like a name for it, and had landed on revolutionary rebels and really thought about the rebel piece a lot. And I was like, hey, are people, and I was like, to me, that's just the word. I don't know. It's a different kind of a rebel, right? But yeah, that for me it is. I feel like we need to like start a revolution around this. Like enough already, enough already. We don't have to keep these cycles going and going. We all know everyone talks about the cycles and it's like, okay, let's stop talking about it. Let's just change it. Let's change it because that's what everyone wants the same thing. Everyone wants the same thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think like a really big piece is, there are so many big pieces, but a really big piece is that as we become parents, we reflect on our experience as a child being parented, and we're like, for some of us, we had great experiences, and I'm so happy for the ones who have had wonderful experiences. But for a lot of us, we've had challenging experiences, and we've gone, I want to do things a little bit differently, and I want to be more connected, or depending on our experiences. But I feel like there was an era of parenting where there was more disconnect, and it was more about disciplining and making our kids behave and represent a certain way. And it was like, you can be seen but don't be heard, and it's following the rules, and my way, it's my way or the highway. And it was just like a really intense form of parenting that was
Yeah.
very much about disconnect. And so a lot
Yeah.
of us have been raised by parents who were raised by parents who are parenting this way. And so for a lot of us, we don't have like huge connections with our parents. And it's not about blaming our parents or grandparents, but it's about acknowledging like, well, this is actually why it is the way that it is. And the only way that we're going to change it truly is to do work that you're doing with revolutionary rebels,
Yeah.
and even just in your day-to-day practice. Like
Yeah.
when you were talking about your, like reflecting on your parenting and growing up with your kids, and like the emotional intelligence piece, I'd really, really, really appreciate it if you could touch on that a bit more. And like, what does that actually look like to have emotional intelligence as a parent, and then to help your child develop emotional intelligence? Because so many parents and children do not have emotional intelligence, and
Yeah.
you can tell, and it's dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Ask the question again, how you first started the question. Yeah.
Yes, I know I kept talking after, didn't I?
No, that's okay.
um
Yeah.
yeah, so I'd love to know, what does emotional intelligence look like for parents as we're parenting, and what does it look like to help develop that in our children?
Yeah. So, yeah, so emotional intelligence is generally it's looked at in like five kind of five like areas like on a wheel, right? It's our self-perception, our self-expression, decision making, stress management, and then interpersonal. So it's and then there's all these subsets in it, and it can look more complicated than it needs to be. So it's really being able to recognize our emotions, understand our emotions, manage our emotions, while also empathizing with the other person, and through that influencing the emotions of other people by us being able to be more aware and in control and balanced in our own emotions, that influences, that's kind of where the frequency comes into even that piece of it. Then that really influences other people's emotions. So as a parent, that has a huge impact, right? When you're modeling it too. So many things I didn't realize that I did. I talk to myself a lot, which is kind of like it's like a joke with my kids. I mean, then I even to like my name, I'll be like, come on, Heather. Like, and I realized almost like I'm my own coach all the time. And I've done this since I was a really little girl. But I realized then for my kids, I would, say things like, oh my gosh, I'm so frustrated right now. And I'd be like, all right, just take a deep breath, Heather. They would hear me doing this like self-talk. So it was a different way of modeling it. But as I was trying to work on myself and figure out how to stay regulated and how to not be pulled out of balance so easily, they watched me do it. I had no issue ever apologizing to them for, for anything. If I, felt that I had either hurt their feelings or had, was me being stressed out was impacting them or anything. But yeah, so I feel like that kids are watching us so carefully. They are watching so carefully. That's how they're learning how to be in the world or how not to be in the world as they get older. But so I think that by being intentional and I see it as self-care really in that way for ourselves. We're modeling it for them. We're teaching it to them by them watching us do it, by them listening to how, your language shifts when you start doing that kind of work. It's the subtle things, but it makes a difference for them. And then they start to learn it and they pick up on the energy or the skills or the tools or things that they see you doing. Because a lot of times it's easier for them to do it because they've seen it than if it's like, okay, this is what you mean, telling them what you need to do when you're feeling this way. One of the worst things, someone's in the middle of a meltdown and it's like, just take a deep breath. And all you want to do is scream at the person, like, don't tell me to take a deep breath right now, But if they see that when you start to get stressed, you're like, right? You're like taking a deep breath and just like taking a second, like pause to get grounded. Then they just do it sometimes. So I started to notice little things like that. Yeah. So that's one way. I think there's lots of ways you can work with it with modeling. You can explicitly teach it to kids, right? And help them to understand it. And there's a lot more work, at least in the States now, in schools. That's been a focus for years now, is really working on the social emotional learning. And I think it's great schools are doing it, but it's what we need to be doing at home. That's where they're going to
Starts at
really,
home, doesn't it? Yeah, because that's where we
really
get the most one-to-one with our
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
What is, so as like women who are watching, who are parents, mothers, because it starts with us as a parent, and you've worked with so many parents. What are some key areas that are going to benefit us to work on ourselves, for ourselves, in order to then start impacting our children in a really healthy way, especially in like the patterns that you've noticed?
Yeah. Like what for our own self, for our own work to do. Yeah. I think that, I think so to me, it all is self-awareness is really starting with self-awareness, comes kind of before anything else. And it's just any moment where you can pause and just kind of take notice of where we're at. Doesn't even have to be in the big moments, but like, how am I feeling right now? What's going on for me right now? And then certainly noticing our triggers, whether it's around our kids or not around our kids, whether we're by ourselves, whether we're at work, whether with our partner, a friend, whatever it is, just noticing what our triggers are, and allowing ourselves to understand, where it comes from and to accept that it's something that is a part of us, but then what, right? But then what would be things to help with it? And I think that just for me, and I see this with a lot of people, like once you start to become aware of something, you naturally start to change it a little bit, right? It just is little things that you don't even know always that you're doing, but you're aware of it. So then when it happens, even if it's your subconscious is noticing, little shifts start to happen. And I think aside from building trust with our children, when we're working on that, it's building that trust with ourselves, once we start to become self-aware. And I think that for me was a game changer when I learned to trust myself. That kind of changed everything. It really changed everything. Yeah.
Definitely. I also
Yeah.
feel like, and I'd love to hear your perspective as well. I feel like we live in a society where we're so stressed and we're always on the go and there's always so much happening. And so our fuse is really short. And so a lot of us don't even have time to reflect on like, why am I being triggered right now? But I'm yelling and I'm frustrated and like, I'm not breathing and I'm not paying attention. I just want this kid to do what I want this kid to do. And so I feel like so many parents are, and I'm gonna be blunt in saying this, but when we become parents, it's our responsibility to actually grow up. It's our responsibility to do the work. It's our responsibility to, it's not our kids' responsibility to behave and like do what we say. It's our responsibility to lead. And so many of us as parents are so busy, so stressed, so overwhelmed, doing all the things that we're not actually doing the work or taking time to take care of ourselves, especially as mothers. And we're like taught to
Hmm.
take care of everybody else first, that it impacts the way that we're parenting. It impacts the way that we're showing up for our kids, but it's also modeling to our kids what it means to be a mother.
Yeah.
And if we look at how we're behaving as parents, like we're often reflecting or we're parenting the way that it was modeled to us, which
Right.
isn't super healthy. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear like your perspective on that. And like, I don't know if you've got some examples of where you've worked with mothers, especially where this was the case and you've helped them sort of maybe create some shifts or some space in their life to be like a more present, healthy mother.
Yeah. I have found one of the most, without meaning to or knowing it, one of the most impactful things I can right off the top think of a handful of parents, especially mothers of teenagers, where just me saying, like, what are you afraid of? Like, what are you afraid of? That's been like, whoa, oh. And then they start to, not even right then and there, but over time, they'll be like, I keep thinking about that and I keep thinking about that. Like, yeah, what am I afraid of? And the things that keep coming up of what am I afraid of for my child? What am I, and a lot of it comes back to our own stuff and our own things, and we're reacting out of that, and we're keeping busy all the time because of that, like that being able to really think about and contemplate and be curious about. I'm a very, very curious person. I always have been, just about people and about feeling. I've been fascinated by it my whole life. But to have more curiosity instead of being so hard on ourselves, to be curious about it, like, gosh, why did I just, flip out? Or why have I been so on edge the last couple of days? Or why, whatever, just to be curious instead of it having to be something's wrong with me or something's negative about me. Like, what do I need right now? What is going on? And then the same for our kids, just to be more curious. I think overall, if we could be a little more curious and wonder about things instead of um, looking for the answer other places, needing to know, like someone tell me, how do I fix it? What's the things to do? Instead to just to learn to slow down, right? I mean, everyone talks about that, right? Learn to slow down and to take a breath sometimes. But yeah, it's so much is driven by fear. And I think a lot of the actual root of it a lot of times with parents and teenagers, when you get down to it, is that it's the parents' fear that then is what the kids are feeling. And then that makes them really like to feel that kind of stress or fear from your parent can be really annoying to kids, can feel overbearing, can feel stifling, can make them anxious. They don't want to feel anxious. So then they are pushing you away because they're like, I don't want that energy around me. And really the parents like, I need you close because they've got what all their worries are about and asking a million questions and, and then it just continues and creates that friction. So I think it's, yeah, being able to pause and it doesn't have to be, right? We are so busy. So it doesn't have to be, it could be 2 minutes before you go to sleep at night. Just think like thinking back on a hard moment in the day or on a really great moment in the day. Like, gosh, why did that go so well? Either way, like just any reflecting on things in any moment. It could be days after the fact, but when you can have a moment, we're going so fast and not allowing ourselves to, I feel like we don't even allow ourselves to fully experience most of the moments that we're in life, whether it's on our own or with our kids or, I think the most that for a lot of people, the most we actually slow down and allow ourselves to experience things, or for a lot of women I know, is like if we're with like our best friend, with a really good friend, it's like somehow then we can slow down and actually really be in the moment and really experiencing it and soaking it up. But otherwise, it's all the distractions and there's so much to the responsibility and the fear of failing or of whether it's conscious or not, of what are other people going to think of me that my kid is like this, that my kid, just the pressure, and we to not allow all that pressure to, it's nonsense for the most part, right? Like
Yes.
about things that are just getting in the way of just being, and it takes away from being present. Life is so busy and so hard. The world, like you said, the world is hard right now. It's not an easy place to be in. So why are we putting even more pressure on ourselves? And um yeah, one of the things is like we don't have to be perfect at all. Just be present. Just try to be present. Like presence over perfection any day, it's like, and the same for our kids. It's the same. Anything that we can work on ourselves, to some extent they're going to get, because it's modeled that there's just no way around it when they're around you, even if they try to reject it at some point, they'll probably come back to it and be like, actually, yeah. So yeah, that's one thing, is like, parents are we're so hard on ourselves, of like every mess up, whether it's that we're not feeding our kid, I don't know, they had cereal for dinner or something, or, instead of a well-balanced, perfect meal, or, the house doesn't look perfect and someone's going to come over, or, whether it's things like that, or bigger things, your child is struggling in school, or they're struggling socially with friends, or they're having anxiety and don't want to go anywhere, or they've got OCD and this is going on. And it's like, oh, we take it all on. We take it all on, which then pulls away from just being able to be present. And I don't know at what point I first really experienced like that, the feeling of like really being at peace inside, like just that like calm peacefulness in myself. But once I experienced that, I was like, oh, that's all I want. Like, that's all I want. Yeah.
I love that. I think a lot of us want that too, but we're so busy being busy that it eludes us. And I love that
Yeah.
you spoke to that. And as you were talking, what was coming through really clearly was, you know, a lot of the times when we're parenting fear-based parenting, like what you were saying, we're worried about like how are they going to live in this world, and it's like protect, protect, protect. Whereas it's not necessarily about protecting; it's more about like providing them the tools and the resources to be able to like function healthily, like
Yes.
thrive in this world. But we're so busy
Exactly.
protecting that we're disconnecting from them and like keeping them in a little bubble, and we're not like paying attention to what they're passionate about or what they're trying to tell us, what they're really trying to communicate, because we're so busy protecting, and then we're so busy and we're stressed and we're overwhelmed, and they're having a meltdown, and we can't even be present with them in that moment because it's like, look, I don't have time for your meltdown right now. Like, you need to just shush and just like just
Exactly.
calm down, right? And it's like so many like things are just stacked on top of us that's like working against healthy
Yeah.
parenting. And so I love that
Yeah.
you're speaking to that. And if you're able to just deepen it just a little bit more, just to maybe like drive it home the importance of presence and connection, and as opposed to fear-based parenting, we want to be like promoting parenting that prepares our kids or like allows our kids to function like thriving, like thrive in life, as opposed to like hesitate and have anxiety in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I think, hmm, so many thoughts like went through my head at once when you were saying that, around the fear.
It's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah. I jumped from like my children to then client, like it just went so fast. My brain can go way too fast on me sometimes. So let me refocus on that. Yeah. So yeah, in terms of the presence, yeah, like the presence over perfection. And I think even, reminding ourselves, like, I mean, we know from ourselves, like kids are unbelievably resilient. I mean, unbelievably resilient. Like, I think I'm in awe of my own children. I'm in awe of children I work with every single day of their resilience. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could do that, and I'm sure I could were I in the situation, but it's just, remembering that too. One is that they're just so resilient. They're so resilient. And if we can slow down enough and just, more of the like, allow yourself to just to feel, right? It's like feelings are so much and they can be so overwhelming, but part of why they're overwhelming is because we're not allowing ourselves to feel them. So they're just stacking up and stacking up. And then it's like, oh, let myself feel them. It's like, well, now I've got days worth of them that have stacked up to feel. Well, that's too much. I'll shut those down again. So if we can let ourselves feel as we go through things and allow our kids to feel, right? Yeah, they might be having really big moments. I mean, what you said a minute ago, right? The amount of times you hear that, like, I don't have time for this right now. And it's like, we don't have a choice. You have to have, if they're having a fit, like there's no way around time for it. Like, there's, yeah. But, and realizing, I think also, I mean, I've been a lot lately, actually did a post the other day about this, of just really realizing, like, I truly believe my kids have taught me more than that I've even come close to teaching them. They've taught me so much. They've helped me to become who I am. And then in exchange, it's helped them become who they are. It's like this, if we can just allow that natural rhythm with our children, rhythm with ourselves, with our life, there really is a rhythm to it. And if we can just allow ourselves to come back to that and come back to that, like just try to slow down and take a little breath and allow ourselves to sink deeper into ourselves and to feel whatever the feeling is. Like, again, be curious, like, what is, like, I am so overwhelmed right now. Like, okay, well, overwhelmed is often an umbrella for what? Like, what am I really? And it's like, oh, I'm really sad. Why? All right, let myself cry. You're going to probably be cried out in 5 or 6 minutes and you're going to be like, okay, there's no more tears coming. All right, now what am I going to go do? But to just allow ourselves to feel it. We think we don't have time to feel it, but we use up so much more time avoiding the feelings for ourselves, trying to keep our kids from having a meltdown or avoiding their feelings, whether pacifying it or telling them just to knock it off and stop or whatever, depending on the situation, that really, I believe we'd have a lot more time actually if we just allow ourselves to feel, allow them to feel, connect. Like when they're having a hard time, like just try to stay in your heart when you talk to them, like talk from your heart. They're going to talk from their heart. It's really hard if someone talks to you from their heart. It is so hard to come back at them from your head. It's just so hard. Like you feel the connection. It's really hard to not also drop down into your heart. So the more that we can do that with our kids, and it's these tiny little moments, a minute. It's not a lot of time that it takes for these tiny little shifts over time. Yeah, I think we're just all running and avoiding, and again, out of fear and, not wanting to be, there's, being a mom, there were so many things that I was like, I'm going to do it different than my mom did in this way, or than my parents did in this way. And then there's all the things where it's like, I just want my children to experience exactly what I did, that I did as a child, that my parents did. Right. Right. But when I tried to run from the things, and I'm not going to do it like my mom, it just backfired. I had to like stop and be like, okay, sit in it though. Like sit in it. What do you, when we're in our head so much, right? It's like you're just spinning. You just can't get very far. And we're not accessible to our kids when we're in our head, right? We're we're in our adult head and they're a child or even a teenager. A teenage brain and adult brain are very, very different. So if we're in our head all the time, you're automatically, how are you going to connect? Right? It's like,
I
yeah.
love this. I love this so much because like one of my biggest messages, and it's literally popped up in every single conversation I've had, is that as women and as mothers, but more so as women, we're very in our head, and how important and necessary it is. Like when people say do the work, it's like get into your body, actually feel your emotions, give yourself permission to feel
Yes.
your emotions. And I know,
Yeah.
like, even through my experiences, and I can like almost just say most women's experiences is we never saw, I think we saw one of two extremes of like, we never saw our parents having emotions, or like it was never modeled to us. What does it look like to feel sad, angry, frustrated, right? It was just like a blank wall. Or some
Yeah.
experienced the exact opposite, which was like the extremeness of
Yeah.
like uncontrolled
Yeah.
emotion. But we're so disconnected from ourselves just as women, and then we become
Yeah.
mothers and we're still disconnected from ourselves, and we're wanting to have this beautiful bond with our kids, but we're disconnected from ourselves, not feeling our
Yeah.
emotions. And our
Yeah.
kids are like, don't know how to process their emotions because we're not modeling it
Yeah.
to them. And so
That's right.
it's so
Yeah.
important, right, that women and
Yeah.
mothers need to take a moment
Yeah.
to feel their emotions.
Absolutely. I remember when my youngest child, I don't know how old he was, probably like around 6 maybe. And I don't know what was going on that day, but I remember I was in the kitchen and he asked me, he's the one of the kids that would be like, "Are you okay?" Right? And he was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Like, "I'm fine." He's like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And I realized after, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's such a lie. Like, why did I say that to him?" Now, what if that's impacting him trusting his intuition of knowing and recognizing that I wasn't okay and that something was wrong, but I don't want him to worry about me. So I'm like, "No, I'm fine. I'm fine." But now I'm taking away from him noticing as the 6-year-old little boy, like, "Mom's not okay." To be able, instead, why didn't I say, like, "I'm really sad," or "I'm having a hard day," or whatever, what was going on. You know, mommy can take care of herself, or whatever, whatever I needed didn't need to burden him with it. But why did I need to make it like, "No, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine," which we do all the time. But yet the energy is clearly you're not fine. So, well, that's a really confusing. So I guess I can't tell as a little kid in my subconscious, I can't tell when someone's okay or not. Whoa. And then, as I said, for me, the big turning point in my life was learning to trust myself. And it makes me wonder if, like, those are some of the ways that, probably I learned to not trust myself, was knowing my mom was not fine, but she would never have said she was feeling anxious or sad, whatever it was. Like, we did not talk about feelings. Absolutely did not talk about feelings in our house at all, And overall, I had a wonderful childhood, but yeah, we didn't talk about that. So my kids probably had to talk about feelings way too much, but you know, but they're really comfortable talking about them. But yeah, so yeah, being aware. Again, it just goes back to, like, sometimes we say we're fine because we don't want to allow ourselves to feel what we're feeling. So we have to tell other people we're really telling ourselves we're fine, but we're by saying it to somebody else. So again, yeah, like you're
Yeah.
saying, just we're so afraid of feelings. I tell kids sometimes, or teenagers, either I'll be like, they're not gonna, it's uncomfortable, but they're not gonna hurt you. You're not gonna die from feeling it. Like, it's just uncomfortable. And then they go, like, feelings are like, emotions are like it's like movement in our body. Like, they want to move, like motion, right? It's just like in motion. Like, so you have to let them. But when we just stuff them, you're just letting them sit and you're stuffing them down and down. And then at some point they've got to come out, and you may not have control over when that's going to happen. And it might be really inconvenient time that it comes out. But if you just let yourself feel it, like it's moving, let it go. It's gonna leave. It's gonna leave. It's not gonna stay there. And it gets easier and easier the more you just feel them. And again, be curious about them. Like, where does it feel? Oh, when I'm anxious. Oh, where does that hit? Oh, it's my stomach for me. Huh. Ask your friend, "Hey, when you feel that, oh no, I get a headache." "Oh, really?" "Oh, I get a stomach." Like, why aren't these conversations that we can have of, it hits us all differently, but there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with being anxious. It's a super important part of being a human being, right? It keeps us safe when it's firing right. It's just sometimes we are a little extra sensitive in that way and misfiring sometimes, but that's okay. Yeah.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so for women and mothers who have been tuning in and they're like, okay, I can see a lot of things here that could require some tweaking, or there's some work that I need to do. Is it like a simple, healthy, beneficial way, like place where they can just something small that they can start with? And even if it is like feeling your feelings, but in your experience, what's like a really practical and simple place for a woman to start, a mother to start making these changes, healthy changes in parenting?
Um, yeah, I think just, as I said before, just starting to notice even, and whether it's in the moment, whether it's the next day, it's like you're washing up at night. I don't know, when you've got a few minutes and you're just, could be in the middle of doing something else and just reflect back on the day or reflect back on the week, or, everyone's different. Some people are really structured and be like, okay, every day I'm going to spend a few minutes doing it. Some of us not so much. So it's like just any moment you have. But I think it's just bringing that self-awareness again of what are my fears for my kids? If, as for parents, I think really like starting at any age, I wish I had thought about that more when my children were really little. What am I afraid of for them? Not just the things that I went through or happened to me that I want make sure to protect them from never having to go through. Like that's one kind of fear, right? Like none of us want our children to be abused in any way. But what else are you afraid of? Like what are you afraid of? Like for your children, because then really, what are you afraid of for yourself? And just being real with ourselves, I guess, is really, for me, what it comes down to. Yeah, reflection, that self-awareness and being able to reflect is just I just think it's so powerful, because when you do that, you are allowing yourself to feel. And it's a safe way to start feeling, because it doesn't have to be in the moment as things are coming up, but it's a way to kind of like pull back the curtain a little and just be like, let me just take a little peek at what was going on, while all, maybe this feelings are stuffed down right now because I stuffed them earlier, but let me just peek a little what was going on and what was happening. And yeah, I
I love
think
that.
just, yeah, starting with that, and then just remembering the most important thing with our children are so forgiving. Oh my goodness. All they want is for us to come back and reconnect. That's all they want, is for you to come back and reconnect. And it doesn't take much. It really doesn't. But you have to be in the right place. If you're not ready to reconnect, then it's not going to happen. You can't come back and then be like, start a lecture or something all over again. But to really, and that takes being able to pause in yourself and to be real with yourself. And yeah.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And for women, mothers, not to, because sometimes we're like, oh, it's such a small thing. Like, is it really going to have that much of an impact? And I really want to emphasize that these small things, these small moments make a huge impact, even on like how you close out the day, or how you like close out the last interaction with your kid, or the way that you start the next day. You're like, okay, you can like reset yourself and get ready to like come at it from a different angle. So even though it might feel or seem small, it's very big and has a huge ripple effect. So
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then so much, right? From there, then you can build so much but without that, it's really hard to build on. Yeah. To build the work.
I love it. And
Yeah.
women and mothers who, because I know you're a clinician and you've got only a certain amount of people that you're taking on, but you've also got revolutionary rebels.
Yeah.
Is there a space created for that yet, or is that coming?
So I'm just starting to launch that. I'm going to be doing, I haven't set the date yet. Just been working on a free masterclass that I'm going to do. I've developed how I look at it, because I'm very much a systems person. Like I like things like a system is, as I look at it as like the 5 R's of like coming back to our center, like grounding ourselves. which is to reflect, regulate, reconnect, repair, and then reclaim ourselves. So, yeah, so I'm going to do a free masterclass kind of overall a little bit on that. And then also developing like a mini course with like just 6 modules and some Q&As, and then a longer kind of deeper container, like a 12-week container. And then also opening up a membership. So I'm going to do a free, just like Facebook group, just as a place for people to land and connect and ask questions. I'll put videos in there, sometimes. So been working on all those things. So the first things that will come out will be the Facebook group and the free masterclass, and then building from there. Yeah. So those are
Amazing.
in the
I
works right
cannot
now.
wait to share those links in the show notes so people can find you and access you when they're ready to go.
Yeah.
And are there any final parting words that you have for us to close out?
Just to enjoy the journey, really enjoy the journey. I very much felt that way always as a mom, even in the hardest times. And everyone always says, oh, they grow up so fast. And I love being the mother of adult children. It's amazing. But the journey to get here, now that I can sit here and look back on it, and it's like, yeah, it was so hard. And there were just so hard times where I'm like, I don't know how I got through it. But when I look back, it's like, it was just like, what an incredible like honor and what a beautiful like journey it's been. And like, we're all fine, right? We're all good. It's okay. It's really okay. We mess up, we say sorry. It's okay, right? We tell our kids, make some in the moment rash, like, you can't do this, you can't do that. And then they come back, I developed a thing where I say with the kids, like, okay, yeah, go ahead. This is a time we can negotiate. Convince me. Cause I'd realized like, why did I say that? Right. Like, so to save face a little bit, let them, but just to try to enjoy it, not be so hard on ourselves. And yeah, we're all learning. We're all evolving until we're done with this journey. It's just a constant evolution, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. But yeah, it's such a beautiful thing just to enjoy it. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. That's beautiful. I think and it's a message that we all need to hear all the time. And also, Mama, you're doing a great job. Like truly, you're
Yeah.
doing an amazing job in the world that we're
Yeah.
in the environments that we're in all the ways. You're doing an amazing job, and you should be really proud of yourself. And by tuning into this podcast and implementing some of what you've learned here, all you're doing is setting yourself up for more success and more amazingness. And I'm so proud of you, and your kids are proud of you, and keep going and doing the great work. Because I know as a mother, we don't hear it enough how amazing we're
Absolutely.
doing. So I just want to slide that in there too.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. A little kinder, more gentle to ourselves. Yeah.
Definitely.
Give ourselves a little more grace with it all. Yeah.
Yes, I love that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being here on this
Thank
podcast. I'm
you.
so excited for women to receive this, and I look forward to your masterclass when you release it.
Thank you. Yes, me too. Good. Thank you for
Okay.
having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here, gorgeous woman, for rising with us, remembering with us, and refusing to shrink inside a world that benefits from your silence. If this episode moved you, cracked you open, or reminded you of who the hell you are becoming, share it with a woman who is ready to rise too. I want to invite you to follow, subscribe, and leave a rating so this message becomes too loud, too wild, and too undeniable to be ignored. The movement grows because of women like you. Women who choose truth over comfort, liberation over obedience, and voice over disappearance. You can connect with me, Samantha Sanford, at Rebel Matriarch, and all links to our guest are in the show notes below. Until next time, stay rooted, stay rebellious, and remember, the world changes when women refuse to disappear.